So let's go ahead and now create an Aurora database. So I'm going to choose Aurora as of standard create, and we'll see all the different options. So as we know, the editions, we have two possible editions. We have Aurora MySQL or Aurora PostgreSQL. I will use Aurora MySQL. And then from this, we have filters in terms of different versions of Aurora. As you can see, they're available here and what they support. So for example, if you wanted to have a global Aurora database, you could only use one of these versions. If you wanted to have the Aurora databases with a parallel query feature as well, it would filter this list. And if you wanted to have versions that support serverless 2.0, then you have these two versions of Aurora MySQL. Obviously, they may change for you, but you have the idea. So to keep it simple, I'm going to use the default version associated with this, which is Aurora MySQL 2.10.2. Okay. Next, we have templates. So templates represent how you want to create your database. I'll use production to have the maximum amount of details again. So we choose database 2 for the cluster identifier. And here again, I can enter a password and a password. Okay. Next, for the instance configuration, we can choose different kinds of instances. So we have the memory optimized classes or the burstable classes. So no matter what, Aurora is not part of the free tier, but I can choose, for example, a DB too small to reduce my cost as much as possible, or a DB T3 small. It's the same. Okay, so let's use DB too small. Next, for multi-AZ and durability, we know that the data by default is going to be multi-AZ and durable, but it's possible for you to actually create a multi-AZ deployment by creating an Aurora replica or a reader node in a different AZ, which is good for fast failover and high availability. So I'm going to create an Aurora replica. It's going to cost more money, but I can show you different features. If you want to follow along, you can decide not to if you want to spend less money. For connectivity, I will not connect to an EC2 compute resource. And again, we want to have public access, yes. And then we can choose an existing security group, for example, which is the demo database MySQL, or we can create a new one, even easier, demo database Aurora. Okay. And as we can see, it's still using MySQL, so the port is 3306. Authentication for database, we have either password or IAM-based authentication. I will disable enhanced monitoring. And then for database name, the initial will enter mydb. So let's scroll down. We have backup retention between 1 to 35 days, and you cannot disable it. And then we can enable encryption. We can have backtrack to a specific point in time, and we can set up to 72 hours. We can send the audit log, for example, into Amazon CloudWatch logs. And then everything is similar to what we had from before. So let's just go ahead and create this database. So my Aurora database is created. And as we can see, we have a regional cluster with a writer instance and a reader instance. So here, the important fact is that we have different instances to write and to read from, and they're in different AZ. So this is the whole power of Aurora. So if you click on database 2, as we can see, to connect, we have two endpoints. We have a reader endpoint and a writer endpoint. So these endpoints are very handy because they represent an endpoint that will always lead to the right writer instance, and this endpoint will always lead to the right reader instance. So these endpoints is what your application should be using to connect to Aurora. But if you were to click directly on this specific instance right here, this instance would have also a dedicated endpoint, and that instance over here would also have a dedicated endpoint once it is being created. So it's still being in the creating space. Okay, so we have these features that are cool. Then we have other features. So we can add more readers into our reader cluster to add on with scaling capacity. And we can also create a cross-region read replica if you want to have a replica in another region. We can restore in point in time. And another one is that we could add replica auto-scaling. So this one is very important because, well, we can create a policy. And this policy would say, hey, based on the average utilization of your Aurora replica or the average number of connections to your Aurora replica, then scale your read replica. So it's a read replica scaling policy. And say, okay, I want to make sure that my read replica stay at the target value of 60%. And if I go over, please create more read replica. We could also define a scaling period for the scaling policy, which makes sense. And what's the min and the max capacity? So one replica up to 15 Aurora replicas. And this is very handy to have re-replica autoscaling as a database. So I cancel it. We don't need it right now. And now I've made sure that both my dead points, my database and endpoints are available. So we're good to go. So one last thing I can do to show you the whole power of Aurora is to do action and add AWS region. And this is only possible if you chose a version of Aurora that was enabled with the global database feature. But here we can add the database region to other regions, and this will allow you to get a global Aurora. Now, as you can see, this is not possible with this cluster because we need to have an instance with a compatible size to do this first. So we need to change the instance, for example, to a large type of instance, and then we would be able to add other regions to the database cluster. But anyway, I wanted to show you the feature right here. Okay, so that's it for Aurora. This is pretty much what you get, which is an amazing database with amazing performance, great scaling capacity, global, and so on, serverless. So really, really complete database. I really like this offering from AWS. Now, to be done with this hands-on, just take this database and you want to delete it, but as you can see, it's not available. So what you need to do first is to delete the reader instance. So type delete me. Then you need to delete the writer instance. So again, action, delete, and then you type delete me. And then once both these things are deleted, you are going to be able to delete your whole cluster. So I will wait when it's done. That's it. My database is now deleted, and I will see you in the next lecture.